The reign of the Abbasid Caliphate was one of the greatest periods in Islamic history. During the reign of Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, a new administrative and economic capital was built for the Muslim world, which was known as the city of Baghdad. Al-Mansur began the construction of Baghdad in the year 762, and he invited people from across the empire to come and live and work in the city. Therefore, the capital of the Caliphate was changed from Damascus to the newly constructed city of Baghdad. Al-Mansur built the city of Baghdad from scratch and filled it with many great buildings such as the Al-Rusafa Mosque and the Al-Mustansiriya School, which attracted students from across the Muslim world. The city of Baghdad further developed during the reign of Harun al-Rashid, who established the library known as the House of Wisdom, which became a center for literature, science, and translation. During the Abbasid era, Baghdad gave birth to a new wave of scholars, such as the historian known as Khatib al-Baghdadi, who wrote the famous book known as History of Baghdad, which is a large encyclopedia that contains biographies of famous scholars and personalities from the early history of Baghdad. During the reign of the Caliph known as Al-Ma'mun, intellectual and scientific activity expanded outside of Baghdad and extended to all corners of the massive empire. Al-Ma'mun established an astronomical observatory in Damascus, and he opened schools and scientific academies across the Abbasid Empire. Al-Ma'mun also sent envoys to Byzantine cities such as Constantinople to study Greek philosophy and translate Greek works of literature. Thanks to the efforts of Abbasid rulers and their investment in education, the Abbasid Empire came to be known as the Golden Age of science and literature in the Islamic world. The Abbasid era produced scholars and writers such as Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, who wrote a 16-volume history of the Muslim world. The Abbasid period also gave birth to scientists, including the mathematician known as Al-Khwarizmi, the biologist known as Al-Jahid, and the chemist known as Al-Tughrai. The Abbasid Empire also produced great poets such as Al-Farahidi, who wrote the first ever Arabic dictionary, Ibn Rashiq al-Qayrawani, who authored a large encyclopedia on Arabic poetry, Ibn Babak, who was the first Kurdish poet to compose poetry in the Arabic language, and Abu Faraj al-Isfahani, who wrote the famous Kitab al-Aghani, also known as the Book of Songs. Great architecture also emerged during the Abbasid period, such as the city of Samarra in Iraq, which was constructed by the Abbasid Caliph al-Mu'tasim, as well as the Al-Ukhaydir Castle in Karbala, the Al-Khald Palace in Libya, and the Ahmed bin Tulun Mosque in Egypt. However, in the midst of all this construction, discovery, and pursuit of material science, the Abbasids failed to pay attention to the administrative aspects of ruling the empire, and they ignored huge levels of corruption from government officials. Although the Caliph Al-Ma'mun invested in knowledge production, he later became despotic and only sponsored scholars that agreed with his views. Therefore, freedom of ideas was restricted and people began to lose confidence in the Abbasid government. Al-Ma'mun even imprisoned and tortured the scholar known as Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal because he challenged the Caliph's views on theology. Because of this restricted environment, Imam Shafi'i, who was a well-respected jurist, rejected the offer by Al-Ma'mun, who offered him the position of a high-ranking judge. Talent within the empire was not properly utilized, and the Abbasid caliphs continued to favor those who boosted their egos. The superficiality and the love for praise during the late Abbasid period was hated by many, including the poet known as Abul Ala al-Ma'arri, who stated, I shun praise from a man even if he were truthful. So how can I bear lying praise and flattery? The Abbasid governors began to overindulge in luxury, and immorality became widespread. As a result of this state of moral decay, many social reformers such as Abul Atahiya emerged, calling on people to turn away from extravagance. He once wrote the following poem: "A dry loaf of bread that you eat in a corner, a bowl of cold water that you drink from a pure source, a narrow room in which your soul can be alone, or a mosque in which you can be away from the people, reading the Quran and considering the past nations. This is better than hours in tall palaces, followed by a punishment of the hellfire." However, despite these attempts to reform Abbasid society, public morality continued to decline and corruption increased to an unprecedented level. Another reason for Abbasid decline was that the rule of the empire became decentralized, and local Turkic and Persian governors in different regions began to undermine and weaken the authority of the central government in Baghdad. In the year 861, the Abbasid Caliph Al-Mutawakkil was killed by his own guards, who were all Turks. Shortly after the assassination of Al-Mutawakkil, the Turks took almost full control of important positions within the Abbasid government. Because of the seizure of the Abbasid administration by Persians and Turks, many Arabs began to revolt against the Abbasid Empire, which had failed to keep the caliphate intact and had failed to give political representation to Arabs. Arab sentiments during this period were expressed well by the Arab poet known as Abu Tayyib al-Mutanabbi, who began writing inflammatory poems against Turks and Persians in the Abbasid government. Islamic unity had once again disappeared, and old grudges resurfaced. Many rebellions erupted against the already fragmented Abbasid Empire. The next 2 centuries were followed by the fragmentation of the Muslim world and the crippling of the Abbasid state, which was eventually a shell of its former self. However, even in this difficult period, political reformers emerged, such as Abul Hasan al-Mawardi, who was an Abbasid judge and the author of the book entitled The Book of Sincere Advice to Rulers. On many occasions, al-Mawardi successfully mediated between the Abbasids and rival Persian states such as the Buwayhids. However, the Abbasid Empire continued to lose territory to neighboring states and emirates. Eventually, the expanding Mongol Empire took advantage of this weak and divided Muslim world and launched an invasion. The Abbasid Empire, which had ruled the Muslim world for 5 centuries, finally collapsed after the Mongol army led by Hulagu Khan invaded and plundered the city of Baghdad in the year 1258.